The chair recognizes the honourable member for St. Barnabas.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it's always a pleasure to have the opportunity to stand on my feet and represent the great people, the constituency of St. Barnabas. I thank Almighty God for allowing me to wake up this morning to continue to do His will for my life, which includes being the best husband, the best father, and the best citizen that I can be for my people, as I'm sure we all are trying to be, Madam Speaker. As long as there's breath in our body, honourable member. Madam Speaker, I intend to be very, very brief. My father, my parents taught me at an early age is you got to know sometimes when to talk long, sometimes when to talk short, and sometimes when not to speak at all, Madam Speaker. As I hear my colleague, Kenny Rogers put it another way, you got to know when to hold them, and know when to fool them, and know when to walk away, and know when to run. Of course, no doubt, no doubt. Are we in charge today? Madam Speaker, up front, let me express.
Now wait. Now you know I'm the deciding factor.
Let me express. Madam Speaker, let me state up front my support for these important amendments that intends to bolster our financial services sector. Madam Speaker, we know how important that sector is to the economy of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and definitely a benefit to the Bahamian people. There are a few matters, Madam Speaker, that I wish to touch ever so slightly, Madam Speaker, as we talk about the importance of this to the financial services sector and the Bahamian economy at large, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is clear to the Bahamian people that this government lacks the creativity and ingenuity, Madam Speaker, as it relates to the economy of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and that they've anchored their economic policy on one filled with taxes and increase in fees to the Bahamian people, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this side has consistently called for the government to take VAT off of bread basket items. We saw very recently that consumer prices continue to increase, yet the government has not shown any thought and real concern to take VAT off of bread basket items, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, history will show that this has been the second time that the government, this PLP government, has put taxes on bread basket items. They did it in 2015, and they did it again in 2021. And Madam Speaker, as we prepare for the upcoming budget debate, this is one that myself and I'm sure the leader of the opposition and the other members will continue to talk about on behalf of the Bahamian people who continue to hurt as this government continues to show their inability to develop a strong, vibrant economy that benefits the small man, the working class Bahamians in our country. And what it continues to show, Madam Speaker, that the government does not have any real ideas as it relates to truly creating economic empowerment in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and that it is limited to taxes and increase in fees on the Bahamian people, Madam Speaker. The Bahamian people continue to ask what tax or what increase is next from this government. And incidentally, Madam Speaker, you know, during the campaign, the last campaign, the government said, well, at that time when they were in opposition, that if you elected the Free National Movement, it is likely that taxes will go up. That was part of their campaign, that if you elect the Free National Movement, your taxes will go up. Very ironic, as they say, Madam Speaker, because it's been this government that has increased the tax burden on the backs of the Bahamian people. And the Bahamian people, they aren't fooled. And if this government continues to sleep on the Bahamian people, beware. As Mama used to say, every shut eye is sleep. And the Bahamian people are watching, and they are talking that there is no relief under this current administration, under this current government, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I was spoken last week about another decision by the government that is quite disheartening and just very, very short-sighted and heartless. Not what the opposition says, but what persons are saying out in Bahamian society, particularly those directly impacted, and I'm talking about the members of the security branches of our country, Madam Speaker. This decision to cut the insurance benefits of future enlisting officers in our security branches. It is something that is not sitting well with the security branches. As we say, these persons who give their lives to the protection of the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, who their families serve along with them. And every day since this decision has been made, and I'm sure it's happened to a number of members here, including members of the government, police officers, correctional services officers, members of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force have walked up and said they feel betrayed that this government would treat them this way. They talk about the great imbalance this will cause in the ranks, in the very security branches. One officer explained it this way, Madam Speaker. One officer explained it this way. So, Mr. Cartwright, can you imagine a year from now, 5 years from now, that my comrade and I are headed to use his words, to a situation that puts his life in jeopardy, by extension, makes their families very vulnerable. And my fellow officer says to me, well, you straight, your family straight. They taken care of, but my family ain't straight. See the problem that causes? That create that imbalance, in that case, in the Royal Bahamas Police Force. These men and women that give their lives and their families, but yet the government, by its decision, are saying to the security branches that, you know, we don't care about you that much. We are now going to take away a benefit that the organization has benefited from. And I've heard the government talk about, well, that ain't the set who they're now. We're talking about the set July 1st, that will enlist after July 1st. And the honorable member from Freetown stood on his feet, and he talked about affordability. But also, as this officer said, and while they are doing their jobs, they are voters too, and they watch the other issues. And they talk about how the government can spend $70 million on consultants, but yet, when it comes to the affordability issue, you deprive police officers, defense force officers, officers at the correctional services department. It is wrong, Madam Speaker. And we encourage the government to reconsider its policy position, to reevaluate, because the men and women of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, the men and women of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, the men and women, Madam Speaker, who are at our prisons to this day, are now wondering what kind of government does this to their bold and their brave and their courageous, some of their greatest sons and greatest daughters, Madam Speaker. And I'm sure there are members of the government who, well, all of us have family members in all of those security branches. Some members of the government were, in fact, members of the security branches and know the impact that this is going to have on their lives and the integrity. And when I talk about the integrity of the organization, how the security branches and these organizations, how they work, and the morale, and those things, just like this policy that is going to impact, by virtue of what has been shared to me, and I'm sure many others, how it impacts the morale of these organizations, the morale of these officers. And the good thing is, as good soldiers as they are, they are going to be very careful of where they express this. But the truth is, they pull you on the side and they tell you exactly how they feel about this. And as we know, there are many ways to show and express how you feel about what a government is doing. And that day will come, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I just want to read, Madam Speaker, two statements. One by the Royal Bahamas Police Staff Association, and the other by the Correctional Officer Staff Association. And I want you to listen. I want the Bahamian people to listen to the frustration, the exasperation, the great pain members of the security branches feel as it relates to this policy. Members of the Police Staff Association, let's be fair to law enforcement. For as long as the executives of the Police Staff Association have been begging and pleading with government after government for vision and dental to be added to our insurance, it has always fallen on deaf ears. Government on both sides have long made promise after promise, but nothing has been done. In the upcoming budget, it finally seems as though we were getting somewhere with the increase in salary for law enforcement recruits. But now, just look at it. They're taking it all right back, Madam Speaker. Many cannot afford to pay for family, to pay for dependents' insurance coverage. Where is the incentive? Instead of adding, they take away. Just look at what's going on around the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. While it is an amazing accomplishment, and not to minimize it, but this 50th anniversary of independence celebration and the millions upon millions of dollars that is being wasted has to be recouped from somewhere. The first place they look to do so, as usual, is at the men and women that are depended on for the protection of the country, law enforcement. The average law enforcement officer serves his country for 30 to 40 years and sometimes beyond. Whenever that officer retires, they have to pay out of pocket to remain insured. The Police Staff Association has presented governments past and present with an insurance proposal that would have saved them over $25 million a year, that would have given greater incentive to law enforcement, hundreds of man-hours, research, comparative studies, and money were invested into getting the best insurance proposal for law enforcement, trying to get improvements across the board. But here we are. Where is the fairness for law enforcement? The Cabinet of the Bahamas has made a decision that will unilaterally affect the future of every law enforcement agency in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas without consulting any of the representative agencies. I repeat that again, Madam Speaker. Where is the fairness for law enforcement? The Cabinet of the Bahamas, this cabinet, this government, has made a decision that will unilaterally affect the future of every law enforcement agency in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas without consulting any of the representative agencies. With the level of crime facing the country, the government should be trying to incentivize law enforcement officers. But instead, they begin stripping away the few benefits that we do have. Selflessness. So these are officers who are enlisted. And the government thought that the set who are enlisted ain't gonna make no noise because they straight. But they continue to show their selflessness as they think about comrades that they have not even met yet. But they understand the importance of this benefit to their organization. They continue to show their courage and their bravery. What's next? It goes on. I cry shame on them for the blatant disrespect this government has continued to show towards law enforcement. Blatant disrespect. Blatant disrespect, not our words, the words of the Police Staff Association. Things have to change, and they definitely will. Continue to stand by for further updates as we await the next chapter. Thank you for your continued support as we serve the protectors with pride. Madam Speaker, that is a sobering indictment on this government. Not the opposition, we ain't stir up nothing. That's the members of the Royal Bahamas Police Force. And this is how they feel about this decision that this government has made. The government will answer for this. The government will. Madam Speaker, statement by the Correctional Officers Staff Association. The government of the Bahamas, this government, has made a decision that will unilaterally affect the future of every officer whose agency falls under the security branches. Many of us are not concerned because we are not affected by these changes, but this is a cause to be alarmed. We have been lobbying for dental and vision to be added to our insurance plan for years, and the requests have fallen on deaf ears thus far. One can only wonder what else is in the pipeline to be taken away. It simply shows that the increase to recruit starting salary from 18,000 to 20,000 was given, but not without consequence, Madam Speaker. It would cost over $700 monthly per dependent if an officer decides to carry on with the coverage. So what they have said is there was an increase, and while they was feeling good, and they've been feeling good about the increase, now they realize the bait and switch. Apart from individuals having an opportunity to serve their country, our insurance has been a staple for decades and is one reason, if not the primary reason, that attracts young men and women to these various agencies. There is no justifiable excuse that we can accept. The decision was made with no regard, discussion, or consultation with various unions or associations. We refuse to accept the government can no longer afford it. We refuse to accept that the government can no longer afford it. While this is a huge and proud moment for our country, millions of dollars is being spent on our country's 50th anniversary, while the very same agency who are now being slapped in the face, not my words, being slapped in the face, are expected to perform in these festivities. We cannot allow this coverage to be downgraded and remain silent. If we do not act, the next step may be we who are not affected by the change may no longer be allowed to add dependents. We do not know, and we are not prepared to leave it up to chance. The Correctional Officers Staff Association has made contact with another major security branch agency and expect to reach out to all by early next week. Thus far, we both share the same position, and the consensus is exactly the same. These actions are nothing less than disrespectful. Madam Speaker, these actions are nothing less than disrespectful. The government has to look at itself and consider this heartless act not that the opposition is talking about, but that the men and women of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, officers of the correctional services, and others have great concern about. We will stand up against this decision, whether it be collectively or independently. This is not a fight the association alone can win, as we work on a strategy to address this issue. Madam Speaker, I thank the honorable members for their indulgence, but I thought it was very important to read these statements, Madam Speaker, to show again how our bravest sons and daughters feel betrayed by this government, feel betrayed. And the truth is, Madam Speaker, while there are all kinds of issues that run the gamut of being important and significant, nothing can be more important in my view and in our view than protecting and showing our loyalty and our support the men and women who put their lives on the line every single day, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I thank you very much for this brief intervention. I pray that, Madam Speaker, that the government reconsiders its position, and I want the members of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, members of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, and other security branch members to know that the opposition, led by the Honorable Michael Pintard, supports them. We believe that this position is heartless. We believe that it is disrespectful, and we believe that it is a slap in the face of the men and women that give their lives every day. Our families, our mothers, our sons, our uncles, our aunts. These people aren't foreign to us. These are people we see every day, that we are glad when we hear their voice, because we know that despite their duty, their selfless duty, that they were not affected today by some perilous situation, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I thank you very much, and God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.